next year. And here's some of the ways they spent down their budgets. We found $300 million spent down the vehicle budget, purchasing cars, trucks, snowmobiles, motor scooters, and other vehicles. We found $460 million spent by the agencies on redecorating and on furniture. We found $500 million, $500 million spent by the agencies on PR, that's public relations, spending down their marketing, promotion, and advertising budgets. And I can tell you nothing rankles taxpayers more than spending taxpayer money to convince taxpayers to spend even more taxpayer money on a larger size and scope of government. The Pentagon, the Department of Defense, spent $62 billion in the last month of the fiscal year. It was one out of every $4 or $5 that they spent on contracting on the year they spent in the last month of the year. We found they spent $9,300 on a club leather chair. They spent $1 million on PBR, the Professional Bull Riders Association. The Pentagon spent down their lobster tail and snow crab budget, spending $4.6 million in the last month on lobster tail and snow crab. And so we dug a little deeper. And when we reached out for comment, the Pentagon admitted to spending $25 million on lobster tail and snow crab over an 18-month period. We also published at the Wall Street Journal an annual figure of what the Pentagon was spending on expensive coffee cups. Up to $1,218 on these expensive coffee cups. And Senator Chuck Grassley picked that up, wrote an oversight letter to the Department of Defense. He got the program stopped, but they admitted they had spent $350,000 on that program of expensive coffee cups. And I'd feel a lot better about all of this spending at the Department of Defense if they could pass their audit. The president, the audit of the Pentagon's been on the books for decades, but nobody enforced it. Well, President Trump did enforce it. He mandated it. The Pentagon spent a year. There was 1,200 auditors. They spent $400 million on the audit, and the Pentagon flunked it. We need a transparency revolution. We need to challenge the culture of corruption in Washington, D.C. I just want to close with the following story, and it is good news. I received a call 2 weeks ago from the White House, from the Executive Office of the President, the Office of Management and Budget. And they said that for the first time in our nation's history, included in the President's budget to Congress is a chapter on the elimination of wasteful spending. And they said that our work, our oversight work at openthebooks.com had helped inspire that chapter. They sent me a copy of it, and the President recognized in that chapter the following, and this is really important, quote, that a bloated, duplicative, and wasteful federal government is a threat to America's future. And that's really good news. We called for a transparency revolution, and in the President's budget to Congress, he commits to oversight resources on every single federal spending program. We called for a war on waste, and the President is declaring war on waste. We called for 5% cuts in the agencies, and the President's budget adopted that cut. We called for the elimination of improper payments, and the President is committed to it. We called for the end of use it or lose it year-end spending. The President cited in his budget our organization by name, bullet-pointed our findings, and hyperlinked and footnoted our oversight report on our website. We believe that transparency is revolutionizing United States public policy and politics. Join us, join the transparency revolution. Thank you. Well, I'm glad you're clapping and that you're not depressed. If you feel depressed, fight the urge. We're Americans and we have a fighting spirit, and this is our moment.
Thank you. We now have time for a few questions. Please raise your hand and wait for a microphone to be brought to you.
First of all, great work.
Thank you.
Drilling down is where all the secrets are, and you've done a heck of a job drilling down.
Thank you.
My question to you is, President Trump signed an order freezing hiring in non-essential services when he first came into office. Is that still into effect? And do you know how many spots he's eliminated?
So I don't know if that specific executive order is still in effect. My thinking is that it probably is. But let's go to some of the research that we've done that we feel is a leading indicator by the president on spending. And that's a tranche of spending he fully controls as the executive, and that's the White House payroll. And I'm a senior contributor at Forbes. The last 3 years I've written about the White House payroll. It's such good news that we're about the only ones now writing about the White House payroll. President Trump has saved taxpayers $20 million on a leaner White House payroll versus the same years under the Obama administration. We found no evidence of czars. The payroll of the First Lady is half, 12 versus 24 underneath the previous First Lady. So the president is leading by example. His payroll headcount in his first year, he was down 100 employees. He has slowly added employees back, but he's still down about 40 employees versus the same period underneath the Barack Obama administration. And quite evidently, there's been a lot of winning. The president is doing more with less.
I think you just gave an extraordinary speech, but I think it would be much more effective if people like us could find it online and share it with people we know. Would that be possible?
Yes, we'll post a transcript of it. Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. I tell you, our team, we never take any of this for granted. My personal story is I'm an entrepreneur. So in 1997, my brother and I, we started a publishing company from scratch, from our apartments. And, success in America, it's always impossible. And this is the genius of capitalism, because it squeezes you and brings out your best. For 6 years, every one of our employees out-earned my brother and I. My brother had gone to Harvard Law School, didn't want to be a lawyer. He wanted to be an entrepreneur. Up through year 5, we'd make a little bit. He'd call me with a capital call. You know what that is. That's money that goes back into the business to grow the business. In year 6, we were a $5 million business, but by year 10, we were a $20 million business, and we were an overnight success. And that's how it works in America, right? But that's why I fight so hard, because if we're going to be taxed and if they're going to spend it, we deserve to see it, be able to follow it, and hold them accountable for honest, clean, and effective spending.